A lot of what you can learn about so-called communication skills are actually manipulation skills, and they appeal to one of two deep fears that we have. And unfortunately, even if you learn how to be a great manipulator, and even if you learn it in such a way that you can tell yourself this is not manipulation, it's never going to give you what you really want. I've been exploring, practicing, and teaching communication skills for a long time, and there's a whole lot that I have simply discarded and stopped using myself because it belongs into one of two categories. And I have had to develop a third way that is greatly underrepresented. But it actually leads to the things people want when it comes to being a better communicator. So here's what I mean. There's two broad categories that most communication advice falls into. The first is a type of advice that really appeals to our inner people pleaser. It is advice that promises to teach us how to be more charming, how to win people over. It is the how to win friends and influence people type of advice. It is how to become more charismatic and use the body language secrets of these celebrities to charm everyone. Now, at first this might seem nice and wholesome, but it is ultimately fear-based. The fear this appeals to is that I'm not good enough as I am, I don't fit in, and in order to survive, I'm going to make people like me. I'm going to be a better chameleon. I'm going to use whatever body language and smile in just the right way and say just the right things to make you like me. The other category of common advice is the 48 laws of power kind of thing. Machiavellian advice for how to get a leg up, how to win the manipulation game, how to use dark psychology secrets and negotiation tactics to win at life. This too is fear-based advice, and it appeals to a different kind of fear. It usually comes from hurt people and appeals to hurt people who have at some point learned people lie, people are dangerous, people take advantage of me. And so the way to win is I have to be better at taking advantage of other people. I have to outsmart other people so I can detect when they're lying to me. I have to be better at lying to them than they are lying to me so that I can ultimately win. It's a very adversarial perspective, and the fear here is that I'm alone, people can't be trusted, we're all engaged in some kind of a competition, in some kind of a battle against each other, and I have to do whatever I can to get ahead. Often this doesn't look like it comes from fear. In fact, people who do this at a high level seem like they're in control, seem like maybe they're just like, well, evil. They're taking advantage of people, they're being deliberately dishonest and manipulative to get what they want. But inside, that comes from a place of fear. That is something that is deeply fear-based. These are the two games that are being proposed. You're usually given a choice between one of those two options. Are you either going to make everyone like you, and that's how you're going to be safe, or you're going to dominate everyone, and that's how you're going to be safe. The problem with both of these games is that they're the kinds of games where even if you win, you still lose. You can become the perfectly charming people pleaser and make everyone like you, but it comes at the cost of authenticity. You become really good at meeting other people's expectations, and you might end up being surrounded by lots of people and everyone's having a good laugh over the dinner table or over cocktails or whatever, and you have this feeling of crushing loneliness because none of these people know you. None of them have ever seen you. All they see is the performance you put on. All they see is that version of you that you put out there and hide behind to please everyone, to make sure that everyone likes you, everyone's having a good time. Nobody has ever seen the real you, and so no matter how many people are around you, no matter how much communication and connection you seem to have outwardly, you will always feel totally alone on the inside. And if you win Machiavelli style, then same thing. You might end up getting things you want. You might end up having power. You might end up having a table full of people, but you can't trust any of them. You have to assume that they're all out to get you. And there's a whole bunch of things that if they uncovered, you'd be in trouble, right? Because everything is built on lies and power and control and manipulation. And it is basically a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you treat people like that, if you always take advantage and exploit and lie and do whatever it takes to gain an advantage, well, you can't really expect other people around you, the people who are in your orbit, to be any different. Many people would justify that, well, this is just how business works, for example. If you want to win in business, then this is the kind of thing you have to do. But I would actually argue that that's not true either. And the Jim Collins books like Good to Great and Great by Choice, and I'd also add in the book Super Bosses, These are some excellent resources if you want to get a more realistic perspective on what do super high-performing CEOs and leaders actually do? What are they actually like? And you'll see that this kind of Machiavellian style does not fit into the world of most high-performing leaders either. So this is, again, why I say you might be successful in the end as like you have like your small little tyranny that you rule over. But you're probably blocking yourself from higher levels of success, and also you'll have a pretty miserable existence. So in both cases, even if you win at this respective game, you're still losing. And note that both of these ways of communication are not only fear-based, but they're also both manipulative. Even if you're doing the charisma, people-pleasing style, you're still being a manipulator because you are changing the way you behave, you're changing what you say and what you do in order to reach some kind of a goal. You're trying to manipulate other people into, even if it's manipulating them into feeling better, or manipulating them into liking you, and manipulating them into not being in any kind of conflict with you, that is still a form of manipulation. We often don't think of it like that and we don't call it that, but it is fundamentally still manipulative behavior. And I point this out because for me, this was one of the things I was looking at, and I was asking myself, well, what does truly non-manipulative communication look like? What does communication look like that does not come from a place of fear at all? And this brings us to the third option. In my mind, I've been calling this social leadership, but I think I need to find a better term for this because it just doesn't sound very good or very catchy. For now, let's call it integrity-based communication. Integrity-based communication puts truth first. It basically says the highest priority is that we're being truthful and honest with each other because that ultimately leads to trust. So I can still have a goal like, I want to close this business deal, or I would prefer you to like me than not to like me, but the priority is truth. In integrity-based communication, you treat yourself and anyone you communicate with as full, complete, and sovereign individuals. And that means the assumption is I am allowed to have preferences, I have needs, I have desires, I have fears, I have boundaries, and so do you. And you are allowed to make your own choices, you're living your own life, you have your own preferences, and so on. And we are not trying to wear the right kind of mask for the right kind of context. We're simply trying to find truth. We're trying to find a truthful common ground. This, by the way, is related to attachment styles. I've made some other videos about attachment style and how to heal it, and I'll link to that below. But one of the things here is that the other two types of communication really appeal to wounded, insecure attachment style. And what I'm talking about here, saying, hey, look, I'm an individual, I have my desires, boundaries, preferences, and so on, and you're an individual, and you have your desires, boundaries, and preferences, and you're allowed to want things that I don't want. You're also allowed to not like me, and failure is allowed, right? There's an allowed outcome here. That is a trait of secure attachment. Let me give you a couple of examples of what integrity-based communication might look like in specific scenarios. The first one being a typical relationship conflict. There's two people in a relationship and they want different things at a specific moment. Let's say he wants to spend the weekend together, she wants to spend the weekend with her friends somewhere else, and this becomes a source of conflict. One of the ways in which this turns into a source of conflict is that we take it too personally. So he, instead of going, well, you have a different preference than me right now, he goes, oh, this means you don't love me anymore. This means we're in trouble somehow. Obviously, that feels bad. This fear comes up, this emotional pain, this fear of abandonment comes up. And what does he do? He maybe starts playing it up and really shows how much pain this is causing him and taking it really, really personally. She in turn sees that, sees, oh, look at him, he's suffering so bad. He's making her feel selfish, maybe accusing her of being selfish if she goes away and does stuff with her friends instead of him. And eventually she goes, yeah, okay, fine, it wasn't that important. I'll spend the weekend with you. And so what happened here? She is ultimately doing something that's out of her integrity. It's not really what she wants. It's a compromise. And he got her to compromise in this way with essentially a soft form of power, right? He wasn't like domineering over her, but he was pushing her emotional buttons in the right way to manipulate her into getting what he wants. A high integrity version of this conversation would go differently. And first of all, the pain is the same. If he feels this fear of abandonment and the emotional pain, like that's not going to change. And I want to be clear about that. High integrity communication doesn't turn you into an unfeeling robot or something like that. This still happens. She says, hey, I'm going to go away with my friends for the weekend. He goes, oh my God, this doesn't feel good. But the first thing is he becomes aware of that and he voices that directly. So he voices his preference. Hey, I would really like to spend time with you this weekend. I really prefer you not to go and do something without me. He can express that honestly, but he's not doing it in a way where he's thinking, how do I say this? How do I maybe make her feel a little guilty? How do I make her end up agreeing with me and staying? Instead, he's just saying, well, here's what's true. This feels bad for me. This makes me sad, or whatever it is that comes up. She can see that. She can see, oh, I can see that this is bothering you. I can see that some fear and pain is coming up. And let's explore that. We can look at, well, what exactly are you afraid of? What feelings exactly are coming up? If we go there, this actually confronts us with one of the obstacles, one of the reasons why a lot of people find it difficult to communicate in this way, which is that when we look at these reasons more closely, it feels a little bit silly and it feels vulnerable, because maybe what comes up is, well, there's like this voice in my head that says, oh, you don't love me anymore. You want to go away and spend time with your friends because you just want to be away from me. I'm just not good enough for you. And maybe this is a relationship where things are going well, and there's no rational reason for him to believe these things. But guess what? We're not always rational like that, right? Emotions can come up. It's these old wounded parts come up where, yes, this is an overreaction. Saying, oh my God, you don't love me, I'm going to be alone forever, is an overreaction to your partner going away for the weekend. And so it feels vulnerable and maybe a bit silly, and maybe a bit embarrassing to even share that. But again, if we are looking for truth primarily, then okay, this is what's going on. This is what's happening for me right now. On her side, she can see that, and she can see, yeah, this is really hurting. This is really touching something tender in you. And this is also where our tendency would be, oh, I want to make you feel good, right? I see that you're uncomfortable. I see that you're in pain. Let me just agree. Yes, let's spend the weekend together. It's all good. I'm basically immediately trying to fix you. And that too is a form of manipulation. I'm saying, okay, you're feeling sad. Let me make you not feel sad. So instead, she can acknowledge that and see, here's another fully sovereign human being who's going through some emotional pain. And she can check in with herself and be like, okay, what is true for me? Is it the right choice for me to stay here because of this? Or is it the right choice for me to go away on the weekend as planned? Obviously, she can still make either choice, but if she's saying, look, here's what's true for me. What feels good for me is like, I want to go see my girlfriends. I haven't seen them in a long time. This would be good for me. This feels right for me. And I also want to make sure that you feel loved and taken care of. And how can we make that happen? And most problems, when they're examined like this, will reveal a better solution than the original compromise. Originally, there's two different desires and we're like butting heads. And it's a game of manipulation and who wins. And either she wins and gets her weekend away, or he wins and gets his weekend together. The problem with either of those solutions is that nobody's fully happy. If she's away on the weekend with her girlfriends, but she's also feeling guilty because she knows he's at home and feeling sad and so on, that makes it worse for her. If she stays back, then they're having this kind of resentful weekend together where she kind of wishes she was away, and he also knows, oh, she would have liked that. Right? It's not actually a great outcome for anyone. You can usually find some common ground based on truth, which is like, she wants to go do this. He can also, if he allows the emotions to come out and goes, okay, how do I really feel about this? Well, yes, I do want you to go have a good time with your girlfriends. I don't want to be an obstacle here, but also I don't want to feel abandoned and alone and hurt. So what do we do? And probably there is some solution where they can agree to communicate in a certain way while she's away that just reminds him and reassures that fearful part of him that, hey, I'm still with you. I'm still here. I'm coming back. I'm looking forward to coming back. And it might be something like, well, let's plan next weekend together. So this weekend, I do this thing for me. Next weekend, we'll do something extra special for you. You have the whole week to look forward to that. Because ultimately what's important is that if we really see, look, here are my needs, here are my boundaries, here are your needs, here are your desires and your boundaries, we can usually find a better way to address that than to have like a conflict until one of us gives in. Another example of high integrity communication is in a business context where, you want to close a deal, let's say. You want to close a client. Now you can always go for the hard sell. You can always go, okay, I'm just going to tell this person whatever it is that they want to hear in order to get their money. And look, if you've hired people, if you've hired agencies, for example, for something, I'm sure you've encountered this problem. They will say yes to absolutely everything. They'll say, yes, we can do that. Yes, it fits in the budget. Yes, we'll be able to do it in 3 weeks. Yes, 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 yes. And as soon as you sign the check, what happens? All of a sudden, everything is slower, lower quality, difficult, complicated. They can't actually do half the stuff they promised. And it ends up taking longer or costing more or both. I've seen this a lot, unfortunately, with like coaches and service providers and agencies and so on. It's gotten to the point for me when I hear someone do a sales pitch, a sales script, I kind of give up already because I can see that they're just going through the motions to get my money. And so often there's so many people out there who've been trained on here's how to close the sale, but they haven't been trained on here's how to actually deliver what you promised. The problem with this is that you get the money once from this person, you then have all kinds of difficulties and conflicts. Like if I'm on the selling side, right? If I just sold you something, I talked you into giving me money, and now we have this kind of fraught relationship because I've promised too much, you're expecting too much, I'm not able to deliver, I feel bad about that, your resentment on your side is growing. This is not going to end well, and I'm not going to keep getting your money for very long. It is absolutely possible to build a good business without doing this. It is absolutely possible to prioritize. I want to talk only to the right kind of clients, and I'm going to only be totally truthful about here's what I can deliver, here's what I do, here's what I don't do, and I only want you to sign this agreement if it really works for you. Then sure, initially, there are some clients you could have signed, you could have gotten that initial payment from that you're now not getting. But instead of having all these problematic clients, you only have clients with whom you have a really good relationship. And over time, it usually doesn't take that long because they want to stay with you because they're having a good experience. So it doesn't take that long before you've gotten more money from fewer clients who stay with you because it's a great relationship than the money you would have made hard selling everyone you can get across. This is the same principle. On that sales call, I can try to dominate the other person and get them to sign, like almost intimidate them into signing. Or I can try to tell them yes, say yes to everything, make them promises I can't keep in order to get them to sign. Or I can just say, here's the truth. I'm only interested in the truth. I want to find out the truth about whether you're the right client for me and whether I'm the right person for you to work with. And only if we find that truth, then we sign the contract. This, honestly, in my experience, is a way better way to build a service-based business. This kind of thing is not being taught enough. This third way of communicating, I believe, is the next thing that we need. I think that on a grand scale, this is a level up. We are leaving those games behind. We're leaving those win-lose and lose-lose games behind. And we're trying to level up to essentially a higher consciousness, higher integrity way of being, of doing business, of relating, of being with each other. I have been experimenting with this in my own life, and it is basically exactly what you would expect of a level up. It requires more presence and awareness and more leadership to do this kind of communication. It is much easier to fall into the lower level games, but the results are better for everyone. When I sat down to record this video, I wasn't sure where this was going to go, but I just knew I wanted to talk about this. And I do think I got a little bit carried away, but I hope it's still useful. Think of this as a starting point. This is this kind of thing I've been discovering and developing that feels like it's incredibly important. And I'm trying to figure out how to package this, how to teach this to more people, how to spread this idea, this way of being and this way of communicating further. I think it's one of the greatest things we can do to level up. So here's the starting point, and actually a lot of the videos I've been making lately are all related to this as well. Like the whole idea of how do we deal with our emotions, how do we become more securely attached, how do we overcome our limitations. These are all the building blocks for this kind of thing, for this high integrity way of being and a high integrity way of communicating. So what you're seeing me do right now is trying to piece this together live. I hope that eventually it becomes, better structured, clearer, more teachable. But instead of waiting until then, I reckon I just start talking about it and start teaching it to the best of my ability and see where it goes. If this is interesting to you, one of the best things you can do is basically help me out by giving me some feedback, letting me know what questions do you have about this, what are your own experiences with this, and let's take it from there. So If you enjoyed this, please leave a comment below. Maybe share it with someone who might find it interesting. And let's keep the conversation going.